Welcome to Minds of Mountainfilm. I'm Josh Bernstein, and my guest today is conservation biologist Dr. Tom Lovejoy. Tom, it's a pleasure and an honor to be sitting here with you. You are a true heavyweight in the world of conservation and biology, and your accolades, your positions are endless. the former chief biodiversity advisor to the president of the World Bank, currently the biodiversity chair of the Heinz Center for Science, Economics, and the Environment, currently the chair of the science panel for the Global Environmental Facility. And the list goes.
I'm just a troublemaker.
On and on and on and on. And you've coined the term, I'm trying to remember from our conversations the other day, biological diversity. Was
That's
that
right.
You came up with that in 1980?
Yeah, 1980.
And you've been a long-time expert and studier of the Amazon, especially the Brazilian Amazon
Absolutely.
basin. Since
yeah.
what, 1965? Is that?
45 years.
My God, wow. So as someone who's been to the Amazon and appreciates the wonders of the planet and the importance of the Amazon to the rest of the world and our ecosystem, what is your position on how things look today?
So,
how dire is it?
So actually, I mean, in terms of the Amazon itself, we now know that a combination of the climate change that's already going on, together with the effects of deforestation and fire, suggests that you could have a tipping point in the southern and eastern Amazon in which basically it would die back because it doesn't have enough rain to be a rainforest.
Okay.
So the good news is you can actually build back a margin of safety if you do aggressive reforestation. Mm-hmm. But at the moment we're at 18%, so we're quite close.
If people are clear cutting the forest, so old growth is gone, the ecosystem is gone, can that biodiversity be restored if people did have the initiative and willpower?
So, I mean, assuming that the species are still there,
sure,
you could probably rescue most of them in a really active restoration project.
Yeah.
But it will be uncharted territory. You just have to learn by doing.
Right. And as you said, if the species are there, but the sad truth is that many of the species are not going to be there.
Probably not. We probably don't even know the names of some of them.
Yeah. Well, can you tell me about the process of understanding biological diversity? How is that assessed? Is it possible to count the number of species on the planet, or is this too large a number?
We still can't even give you within a factor of 10 the number of species on the planet. There was a time when there was thought to be about 3 million, and probably what people use right now is about 10. But when you really get into the diversity of microorganisms, mm-hmm. which have a huge power in making the planet function, it's probably way off the charts.
And is it true then what we've been hearing this weekend in Mountainfilm about how species are dying before we even have a chance to acknowledge that we are losing at such an alarming rate? This background rate of extinction throughout history, as I understand, and we discussed this earlier, that one species per 1,000 years was the natural average background extinction rate?
Yeah, at least in recent millions of years.
Yeah.
And so what we're looking at today is at least 1,000 times that, if not 10,000 times that. I mean, it's one of these exponential curves.
Could it be argued, well, we've had 5 of these before. What's the problem with the 6th one? It's just nature working through a cycle.
Well, other than the ethical and moral issues of affecting all these living things that have exactly the same length of heritage and time as we do, the difference is we live here and we depend on it in ways that most people don't appreciate. But this planet works not as a physical system, it works as a biological and physical system. Mm-hmm. So it just doesn't make sense to do that to ourselves.
Sure. So this is the only extinction that is actually being caused by us, by humans.
That's right.
Whereas the other ones...
This is probably the only time a single species has caused a major extinction event. And we're not quite there yet. We're in the early stages. And that gives us an opportunity to rise above our self-centered ways and actually think about ourselves in a larger self-centered context.
Sure.
And protect the biology of our planet.
The scientific community, though, is how convinced? Fairly convinced, completely convinced, determined that if things do not change, we're on a trajectory towards this extinction?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. There is not a single naysayer about there being an extinction problem. Anybody who's halfway qualified know that it's going on.
Whereas with climate change, there were some naysayers?
There used to be a lot more, and now they're really fringe, but they're there. You don't have anything like that in the biodiversity crisis.
I assume that climate change is one of the factors that's contributing to the biodiversity loss.
Climate change is a huge factor. Biology as a planet is probably more sensitive than anything else that humans should care about to climate change. 2 degrees is just too much for the ecosystems of the planet. And it will also, simultaneously, bring us 4 to 6 meters of sea level rise, wipe out nations and coastal environments and island environments. So it's time to get it together and think big and manage the living planet.
What, in terms of thinking big then, what is it that, if the scientific community is so convinced, and the data that we've been presented with here in Mountainfilm is also alarming, it's serious stuff, what is it that people can do? Are scientists banding together to say we got to get the word out? It seems here in America anyway, there's been less focus on this being the year of biodiversity. I understand in Europe there's greater awareness, in South America, closer to the Amazon, there's greater awareness, but are scientists trying to harness the message in the media and try and get the word out?
Well, I mean, obviously scientists are working at it. It's just harder to do in this country where there's so much distraction. But what we really need to do is, you just need to think on a planetary scale. Stop sort of being defensive, and with total respect to a lot of good things that have been done, not think small, not be defensive, and just make the point that we need to get into restoration of ecosystems on the scale of the planet. And that will pull CO2 out of the atmosphere, some, and make all those ecosystems much more robust.
What else, in addition to the CO2 and the climate change issues, is conservation something that people should be, can we protect these areas where biodiversity is still intact?
Well, it's very important to have more protected areas around the world, places which pretty much left untouched. But it's a mistake to think that will do it. You actually have to think of the entire landscape, all the oceans, all the fresh waters, and think about that as one continuous living system that we need to nurture.
Is this type of audacious consolidation and acknowledgement of resources, can the actions necessary to affect this type of control or preservation be done by individuals? Is this a movement that we need people to be more eco-friendly and aware, or is this governments that just have to wake up and say, President of the U.S., President of Brazil, President of African nations have to work together to solve this problem at the higher levels?
It's actually all of the above, because you have biodiversity at the very local level, all the way to the national level, or indeed, the planetary level. And so there's a role here for absolutely everybody to make a real contribution.
If someone is watching this and they want to find a way to make a change or a difference or a contribution, what would you say to him or her?
I guess 2 or 3 things. One, find out what your local conservation organization is doing. Learn from them. Second, make sure you know what your elected officials are doing. And if you don't like it, tell them, right? And thirdly, once having looked at all of that, you'll probably figure out some additional things you can do.
Yeah, but being involved, I suppose at this point it's optional, but it sounds like if we don't fix things soon, it won't be optional anymore. That we have to make these changes, otherwise we're looking at the collapse of ecosystems and ultimately the web that supports all life.
That's certainly true. The third Global Biodiversity Outlook identifies 13 tipping points, only one of which is that Amazon example. And we just should not go there.
Of these 13 tipping points, how far are we from that tipping point in each of them?
Well, actually pretty close. So,
in all 13?
Not absolutely every one, but coral reefs is already happening.
Right.
The Amazon is 2% deforestation away from that happening.
Yeah.
Ocean acidification is already taking place. So there's just a huge number of things at a very large scale affecting the living planet.
But we don't need to play. I mean, I've heard people say, well, unless aliens come here and give us some technology beyond our understanding, there's no way we can turn back the clock enough to fix this. Not true?
You can't turn back the clock for anything that's gone.
Yeah.
But as long as a living plant or animal or a microorganism still exists, there's still hope.
Can it be done with 7 billion people, 8 billion people, 9 billion people?
Well, the more people there are and the more intense their consumer habits, the harder it is to do it. And so I think we just really need to redefine what the quality of life really is.
Yeah.
And then move forward.
What is it, just curious, what is it that motivates you or that gives you the stamina to push through 40 plus years of watching biodiversity decline? And where is it, do you feel like there's hope, or is this just a scientific pursuit and more data? And
no, it's much more than a scientific pursuit for me. I'm just motivated by the wonder and glory of life on Earth. Mm-hmm. But you know, a lot of things have happened on the positive side of the ledger. And so, whereas when I arrived in the Amazon, you know, that's equivalent to the 48 states, there was one national park, one national forest, and one indigenous area demarcated. Now it's 57% under some form of protection. So a lot of really good things have happened, and things that we used to think were impossible have become possible.
Have you enjoyed Mountainfilm?
How could I not?
No, agree. But I think that this community, one of the reasons why I think we enjoy coming here is because this is a community that tries to affect that positive change and help open people's eyes to the realities of biodiversity loss and hopefully encourage them to make the changes.
Well, it's very clear. I mean, it's just all the way down to how the town manages the runoff from its streets.
Yeah. Well, but I think beyond the practical aspects of Telluride, there's the community of people here who are also trying to get the word out.
And I was just saying, I mean, a community wouldn't go through that effort about the runoff if they didn't care about these things in the larger context.
Yeah. So perhaps other people in other communities can learn from Telluride, and other people who are interested in the films and lectures here can...
Absolutely. They should come see it firsthand.
Right. Agreed. Hear that? Tom, thank you. It's a pleasure as always.
It's great.
Enjoy the rest of Mountainfilm.
Will do.